Well, hey guys, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Sean. Host.
Welcome to the driver's seat.
I don't know what it feels like to really sit here, so
you'll know at the end of it.
Who knows where this may go today? So
it's gonna be great.
But
it's gonna be great.
We'll follow your lead.
All right. Well, Mike's out, and so we get to do this without him. Hopefully, he approves. Right?
Maybe. Yes. It doesn't matter. He is waiting to listen to the newest episode.
Sure. Yeah. Well, hey, Sunday. So we came off of spring break. Any interesting things on spring break? Yeah. No?
You got to travel some spring break.
I did. I was all over the place.
Jet setter.
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
Went to Atlanta with our 9th and 10th graders, worked with a church plant there, one of our new partners, and then went to Phoenix and hung out with that church planter there for a couple of days with our 11th and 12th graders.
Yeah.
Really, really cool few days. Our kids were awesome. Just being a part of church planting throughout the United States and those two really needy places.
Yeah.
And to see the Lord work and to see our kids serve and be exposed to church planting, it was a really good couple of days.
Yeah. I heard Josh Kinsley was talking to me, I guess midweek or so, and he was just saying that they were involved in helping like evaluate what they're doing and to be like fresh eyes.
Yeah.
But they also got to hear a lot of the whys, like here's why we do the things that we do, and here's the people we're trying to reach, all those kinds of things. So it sounded like a really fun.
Yeah, it was very fun but encouraging, and I think eye-opening for our students.
That's good.
What a good missions pastor you are. Yeah. You're so good.
I mean, I'm pretty good.
You're pretty great. So that wasn't the only team that we had out.
That's right.
Week, right.
We also had
lots of
a team in England, right?
That's right. Great team serving with our partner over there in England.
That's been a long-standing partnership.
Long-standing.
What church is that with?
The Cellar Church
in northern England.
Bro, I don't know geography.
He didn't get to go to that one. So
I just think that's right.
I land wherever the plane
I think you go to London and go north.
Yeah. And then we had an awesome team serving, I think, 30-something folks on the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah. That's
I heard from some of them yesterday. They said it was amazing. And what's cool, it was intergenerational.
Yeah.
Right.
So very young kids and much older seasoned saints and everybody in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they had a great time.
Yeah. I heard lots of gospel conversations because you either run into believers that are along the trail or people who are maybe even thinking about life and what the meaning of it and what the purpose of it is, which takes us to Ecclesiastes. How about that?
Right? What a segue.
Hey,
man.
Mike's going to lose his job.
You have that written in your notes.
Sean,
I did not.
Making the transition.
So Ecclesiastes chapter 11 yesterday, a lot of parable type or proverbial type language in this one, and so just was a fun, I think a fun sermon to listen to, and consider all the things that and probably all the rabbit holes that were taken during life groups. So with that, I think Preston, as we were talking beforehand, you kind of summarize that this whole chapter is talking about, or kind of has this concept of taking risk in life, and so when we think about that, here's maybe a good first question to get us started. What's the difference? We've talked about when you see something happen, the paralysis that may happen in seeing whatever's before you, and moving on. And so what's the difference in paralysis and overthinking and wise planning?
Counselor, what would you say, sir?
Well, obviously, paralysis for too long means nothing's happening at all. And so you can know that if you've been looking up saying, I've been thinking about this for like months and still not doing anything, that's probably a sign. I think wisdom typically leads us to talk to others too, and to gain some insight outside of ourselves, because I think sometimes the reason we get stuck is we get stuck literally in our own head thinking about it. And so it's our own thoughts cycling and circling. And when we bring other people into it, they give us a new thought or a new way of looking at it, and it helps us to break out and kind of, get out of our head and get into some other thoughts. And so I think there is a timing element, though, if we just find ourselves like, and sometimes you see it in other people before you see it in yourself, like, you've been talking about this now for a long time. When are you going to do something, right? But I think it is hard because I know a lot of people in my lifetime that I've talked to that got in trouble because they acted too quickly. More so than people who gave it a little more time to think about it. So, I think that is wisdom to give it some time, but at some point you got you got to move. And I think one of the questions to ask yourself is, why am I not moving? And if it's fear, which often is the case, then I think that allows us to come back to God and say, okay, God, the reason, like I do think I'm hearing your voice or your call or your leadership or guidance, what's keeping me from doing it? Well, I think I'm afraid of what's going to happen. I'm afraid it's going to fail. I'm afraid it's not going to work. I'm afraid of what that's going to look like for me. And if it's fear, then it should, as believers, drive us back to Him to say, I give you even my fear. Now help me.
Yeah. Do you find as a counselor, because I would assume you work in this kind of sphere every day, that this is a personality issue as much as it is a wisdom issue?
Oh, yeah.
Because I find myself hardly being paralyzed by analysis. I have to remind myself, did I think about this before I did it? So if a tree falls in front of me, so we're talking about verse 4 specifically, or verse 3 specifically here. If a tree falls, my inclination is jump over the tree or go around the tree or just keep going. Like it is. There's nothing special about the tree. It's just in my way. And so it is an impediment to me. So get over the tree, get around the tree, all the things I guess I can prepositions, right? So whatever you can do to the law. I'm trying to preposition that tree. I'm getting around it, over it, under it, all the things. And I have to remind myself. What's that?
Is that an adverb or a preposition?
Preposition.
Yeah. I don't know.
This is not
They didn't
English
teach
class.
me that in seminary. But regardless of the point,
It's not an adverb,
going back to
though.
I have to remind myself. So I hear this wisdom, and I know that there are people who overthink.
Yeah.
And I do overthink some things, but usually
Some things you push through.
not this. Right. And so I have to remind myself there's also equal wisdom in I need to think about this before I fire off, like the ready, fire, aim situation. So do you see that?
I do think there's a personality difference. I think there are some people that their default is I'm just going to keep moving, and God may be trying to slow them down or divert their path. And they're just like blowing past it because they're not taking the time to pause and seek. And then I think there are other people who their default is He's going to have to write it in the sky in big bold letters
That's right.
before I take a step. And if you're waiting, I do think one of the things that we can do in that waiting is ask ourselves, like, why am I waiting? If it's fear, then I take that back to God. If it's I don't have the information, well, then we can do something with that, right? Sometimes the waiting is a period of searching, seeking, asking. I have known people, we've all known people that have jumped into endeavors with all the excitement of it and the zeal and I'm going to make this happen. And a lot of times for God, like I'm going to do this thing for God. It's going to be awesome. And then they get into it. It's like, oh, I did not do my homework on the front end. And so the struggle is not because God's not God and He can't do big things. The struggle is because I didn't do my homework on the front end before I jumped in and started running.
Yeah. I would say I fall there more on the
wait part or
the wait in contrast to Josh. Historically, I have wanted to take the safe route because not moving decreased my chances of failure. And growing up, failure was the worst, not getting to the end, not being the best, that wasn't the worst. What was the worst was failing. Shooting and missing was the worst, not shooting.
Yeah. So if I don't shoot, I don't fail.
That's right. And if we take that approach in our relationship with the Lord, you can translate that to I'm going to disappoint Him, so I'd rather just be still or whatever. And when you take that disappointment mindset into your relationship with the Lord and how you seek Him and follow His will, you can find yourself paralyzed a good bit.
And that's a tension I think that Jesus even speaks of in the Gospels, right? So when he talks about giving the talents to
I'm the saver, baby.
You're the one who took it and you buried
it. Puppy. We are not going to lose that guy.
That certainly didn't end up well for that guy.
No, it didn't.
But when we think through these things, right? So the first 4 verses are all about understanding that the life that we have been given as a gift, it's short. Generally, it's not fair. Fair as we would understand it. It's not outside the bounds of God's sovereign hand, or it's not outside the bounds of His watch care. But for us, and the way we experience this roller coaster of a ride, it's going to feel unfair, right? So he spends many chapters saying, I've watched righteous people suffer, and I've watched very unrighteous people actually live a long and comfortable life, and it's all hevel at the end, right? And so when we get to this thing, it gets, okay, with that being true, don't don't freeze in the moment. Actually live this life and live in somewhat of a calculated risk situation. And then he starts giving these examples, right? So casting your bread upon the water, or giving your portion to 7 or even to 8. Yeah. And it's this idea, and I think he's using, so we talked about yesterday in the sermon, merchant language. That's casting the bread. So think about you grew a bunch of grain, that's your bread, and you're putting it on the water. So don't just send one ship to one location, send multiple ships to multiple locations, because you're going to get a better return on the investment that you've made in this life. And then he goes on into this idea of, if the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth, and the tree falls to the south or north, the place where it falls, that's where it's going to be. Yeah. That when we risk things, life's just going to happen. Yeah. And when I was thinking through it yesterday, I didn't say it because I couldn't remember the phrase, but in some of my counseling classes in seminary, and you gave me the phrase earlier, it's called magical thinking or magic thinking. And it's this idea that when something happens to you or in front of you or around you, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when I've experienced this, and I'm often open about my mental health struggles, when I'm in a bad place, magical thinking is very real for me. Yeah. And I can overthink things to the point of, why did that happen? Is God trying to tell me something? Yeah. Is he trying to keep me away from this? Did I get that email for a reason? And here's the crazy, did I see that commercial about this cancer screening that I need to go because now I have cancer and God's trying to show me? Right. That's crazy. But that's me, right? So that's just real life. And I know a lot of people wrestle with that. I believe with all my heart, Solomon is speaking to that issue so long ago that they can get caught up in this life of all the injustice that's around them. And they can begin to overthink, well, I don't want injustice to happen to me. Yeah. I don't want my life to be short. I don't want somebody to get over on me. So they overthink. And Solomon is saying, you can't. You can't. Right? Yeah. If you want to have fulfillment, you can't do that. Yeah. So in your wisdom in counseling, how do you help people through that? Yeah. Well, again, in my experience, a lot of that comes back to fear. You mentioned it. I mean, that is still a fear. It's a fear of disappointment. It's a fear of failure. It's a fear of whatever. But I think that brings us back to the sovereignty of God, that He did not call us to be successful. He called us to be obedient. Yeah. And so when we take the step, when we shoot the shot, when we do the thing, we are just doing the part that we do have some control over, because a lot of Ecclesiastes really is about, you don't really have control, right? Right. I had a conversation with my daughter yesterday about, you have control of your decisions. You can choose what you're going to do right now, but you don't have control over where ultimately that's going to lead. Yeah. But generally, when you make good decisions, it leads to good places. But there's always going to be things in life that happen that you're like, hey, I made the right decision, and something bad still happened. And that's where I think the magical thinking comes back in of, oh, wait, did I make the wrong decision? Not necessarily. Fatalistic. You may have done exactly what God called you to do, and He still, the tree still fell, right? Yeah. And I think you saying all that reminds me, it's where we went with our life group was the real the thinking that if I make the right decisions, I'm going to get a good return on investment. Yeah. So I look forward to what could this mean. And if I make the right decisions, then surely I'll get the return that I wanted. And if I don't get the return that I wanted, then that means I should have not made the decision. It was a bad decision. Yeah. Well, if we approach every decision predicting return on investment, then we're motivated by selfish gain and not simply just being obedient to what God has called us to do. Yeah. And I think that's a trap for a lot of us, it will paralyze us. Part of the discussion led to, well, sometimes we don't get to see the return on investment, and I think I forgot where I heard that. Maybe in life group, maybe you mentioned it, but sometimes we'll do things, particularly teachers, or coaches. They won't see the return of their investment in the lives of these kids, because it won't be really recognized for 20 years later, and so sometimes there's just an obedience and you won't ever see the return on it. Yeah. So I brought an illustration today. Do it. What you got? Wait, he actually brought one. Show and tell. Show and tell. I'm telling you, Mike is in jeopardy. Oh, my. Mike is done. I think, so as we've been going through Ecclesiastes, that this has become just a great illustration of God at work and you not getting to determine
or see or know what the end result is, right? And so in this pot right here, I decided to take a chance at growing some oak trees.
Yeah.
So I planted 3 acorns in this pot. And if you look in
you
here,
are from South Mississippi.
right? Acorns.
You
Yeah,
got
that's right.
1.5.
So I've got a tree growing right here. I've got one that's not doing anything there, and I've got another one that's just struggling, right? But here's the beautiful thing. There's stuff happening still, right? And I think this picture of sovereignty of God, and He is at work. He's the one that produces things. He's the one that makes things happen. We do something. But just because we don't have the return doesn't mean there's nothing happening.
That's good.
That's
because even like if I dig down in this right here, more than likely what I'm going to find is there's a rotten acorn.
Acorn.
Right.
Acorn.
All right. And that acorn is actually putting more nutrients in the soil.
Yeah. It's doing something.
Like it's doing something. And so, but I have zero control over that.
That's good.
None.
Right. Yeah.
None. And so, but what I did do was I actually took the chance and put the seed in the
planted it.
soil.
Yeah,
Right. And so, so anyway, I think that goes, I don't know, just a silly illustration,
good.
but I think God's teaching me a lot through this, getting my hands dirty and doing some things like that. But in the same sense, Ecclesiastes, there's this idea that Solomon's saying, hey, enjoy life. Ultimately enjoy God. Do something for Him, but don't do it in such a way that now you're demanding Him or you're making an observation of who God is based on what you see or what the outcome is.
Or mandating that your desire
that's
is
right.
His will.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the way this should turn out. So God,
Because I did this for you, you should.
This should happen,
Yeah, you
right?
should,
And so, but
Way to
anyway,
go, Sean.
That's great.
Mike's fired, and that was good.
But I think the agricultural illustrations, they're kind of lost on us sometimes in our world because most of us don't, unless you're planting a plot maybe for deer or something.
Right.
We just don't live in that world. But the idea of, I'm going to do this thing, and I really have no idea what the outcome's going to be. And I am 100% now dependent upon God and the way, number one, the way that He just created nature to work.
That's right.
But number two, I mean, there's just a lot of this that's going to be out of my control until the end
that's
of
right.
it. I can do my part. I can prep the land. I can plant the seed. I can,
And I think it came up for me yesterday when you said God always produces the fruit. Like we can't. We can't make things happen the way we want them to happen in life. And so, so as we think about that, you mentioned return on investment. So how do we, as we're living the Christian life, one is we've talked about risk. Does the Christian life require risk? And number two, though, how should we approach this idea of investment in such a way that we also have healthy expectation of God is going to do something? Like how do we balance those two things? Evangelism, ministry, parenting, whatever. What's the healthy way to approach that? To say, hey, I'm going to do something, and I am going to have some expectation. But
I think we have to do what we know we can and should do. And let's use evangelism and narrow it down because I think it plays into all of it. And if you look at this from just kind of living life or an agriculture or a merchant standpoint, which is the illustration here, you can fit that in, so everyday life. But I think this is also true of evangelism and how God works in this world. And so we are called to faithful and joyful obedience to whatever the Lord has called us to. And we know that from reading into the New Testament, how the early church worked is if they were faithful in proclaiming the good news of Jesus and actually living out the faithfulness of His kingdom, right? So it is the person and the work of Jesus Christ. I think we've talked on the podcast most recently that a lot of times as evangelicals, we like to preach Jesus' message, but not necessarily Jesus' kingdom. And I think the reason the world isn't so in love with Jesus is because they never see His kingdom working. They only see the philosophy of a man who lived 2,000 years ago. They don't see the fruition of what that actually looks like in real time. And so it's the person and the work of Jesus Christ that we preach and we proclaim. But that's all that we can do. We preach it, we live it, but at the end, God is the one who stirs the heart. He makes the hard heart soft. He makes the dead person alive, and he's the one who brings fruit into the kingdom. And I think in the way that we can understand this, even in the path that goes along, sometimes a tree is going to fall. Sometimes it's just going to be the nature that the tree was rotten and it fell over into the road. And if we sit there and stare at it too long, we stop in the task and
Nothing's
the enemy is won. We can get into the magical thinking of, this is the enemy. He's trying to stop me. Well, if that's true and you really believe that, then crawl over the tree and keep going. Or sometimes we can get to the magical thinking and of thinking, oh no, well, God's trying to stop me. I guess I don't need to go anywhere. But if you read and you, I think maybe Mark, you said earlier, it's the importance of having truth on the outside of the experience.
Right.
So maybe we get lost in the moment, and that's fair. We can do that. That's why we need, again, going back to community, we need other people who are in the situation, but maybe not as close as we are, to give us some objective truth where we may get lost in that magical kind of thinking.
Right.
And they may look at us and say, hey, I think the trees just fell.
Right.
So just, hey, I found a trail. Let's go around it, or let's go over it. Maybe tunnel under it. But we need that community around us just to keep doing the next right thing we know how to do, trusting God to see us along the way. I remember it's, was it John Bunyan? Not Paul Bunyan. John Bunyan's, Pilgrim's Progress.
Yeah.
And it was the idea of Christian going into the celestial city, right? And it was the path marked out for him, so called. And then along the way, Christian meets a bunch of different cast of characters. Some of them good, some of them not so good. Some of them encouraging, some of them antagonizing. Meets different places along the way. But the goal was to get to the city where the king was going to be. And that was where it was going to be. And God, as he looked back, God was with him every step of the way. Where he thought he was alone, but he was with him every step of the way. It feels a lot like that in chapter 11.
Sure.
It makes me think, where is the joy found? And I do go to parenting. It always is hard to imagine parents who have children who have just rebelled and turned from the Lord. How does that parent find joy? Right?
Yeah.
But they do. Because they've anchored their joy in the goodness and the sovereignty of God. Right. And if it was all about the return on investment, then it would feel like a failure. I did everything I was supposed to do as a parent. Yes, I made some mistakes, but I gave everything to my kid, and my kid still didn't end where I wanted them. Well, if it's only return on investment and you remove yourself from the sovereignty of God and the bigger picture of what he's trying to do to write his story throughout eternity, there's a joy and a settledness that comes from anchoring in that, not just in the return on investment, because you do everything right and you get the return you want. If we live life that way, that's a formula that's going to disappoint us consistently.
Can I ask a question?
Finding joy in his sovereignty, yes.
What if it was their fault, though? Like, what if it was
the parents' fault?
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. I think you always own the things that are yours.
Like, not even just parenting, friendships, whatever.
I think you own the things that are yours to own always, but you also, and in parenting, I often remind parents, the only two people to have a perfect parent were Adam and Eve, and it took them about 5 minutes to blow that up.
That's right.
So your perfection as a parent does not guarantee your kids.
That's right.
You're buying into the formula of if I do it all right.
But if there are things that you look back at as a parent and you go, yeah, I did this, and this wrong, and God has convicted me of that, then you confess that, you admit that, you go to them and say, hey, I blew it here.
That's right.
Because it does, I mean, that number one shows them how to live when you recognize your mistakes. Go,
That's parenting.
That's right.
That's God-honoring parenting is the apology. That's right.
Do you think that, and I think this is important for us to say on this podcast, I know we all feel the tension of it, but fatalistic thinking is, in my opinion, just as dangerous as the paralysis by analysis and thinking through. And I think it follows along with that question a little bit of, we think, usually we will think, even though we wrestle with it, we think that everything is just on a linear plane, right? So there is right all the way up until wrong, and then at wrong, somehow it deviates and we can't get back from there. And so we're afraid that at any juncture of failure, all is lost. Like, and that's why a lot of us, like whatever journey we're on, the first sign of failure, we revert back to the worst case scenario because we'll say, well, I already blew it. I don't need to keep going.
Right.
Well, in real life, and this is real life, you can exit or enter at any time. That's the beauty of grace, right?
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of the shepherd along the way, and we're the stupid sheep, and he's the one that when we go off the trail, he pulls us right back. And without giving too much away for chapter 12, Solomon is going to say, actually, it's kind of weird. So chapter 12 ends with a third person interjecting. It's like a narrator kind of jumps back in and says, and this is what Solomon was saying, or this is what the preacher was saying. And he said the wisdom was like the goad of a shepherd. And that's going to be a word we haven't met yet in this book. But think of a shepherd's staff that has the crook at the top, right? The goad is the bottom part. And it's not normally flat. It's normally pointed. And it's pointed to inflict some learning opportunities for the sheep.
Keep them moving.
Right? We call it pain sometimes, but they're learning opportunities that whenever the sheep goes off trail and it needs to come back, but they're not paying attention, the shepherd would goad the sheep. It would hurt, sometimes actually drawing blood and creating a wound on the sheep, but to remind the sheep, hey, get back on the trail. And he may have to do that 100 times along the journey. So along the way, that sheep has some pain. It walks with a limp now, but it made it. And that's something beautiful along the way that we can exit and enter and exit and enter. Each one's going to cost us something. But getting back on the trail is the most important thing.
And the call, I think if you think of a path, because we keep using kind of that illustration, I think there are times where we make bad choices that take us off of his path, and that choice may mean that we're going to miss something that we could have experienced had we not gotten off the path.
Right.
What it does not mean is that we have now gotten so far off that he can't bring us back to his path, right? Now, when he joins us back in, we may still look back and go, yeah, I missed some things. But I think that's part of the learning experience is I don't want that to happen again. I don't want to miss you again.
That's right.
Because that hurts to look back and know that, whether it was time with family or whether it was time with, an experience with God or whatever, that I'm missing out on that. I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
But he can still put us back on his path.
And will, right? Isn't that the beauty of having this picture in the Old Testament that really feels like it's only one-sided, like it gets under the sun and not much more about the eternity. Then you get the New Testament, you get these pictures of Jesus, and we all know the story of Jesus leaving the 99 to go get the one. But to the question, would Jesus come after me if I keep going off the path? What if I go really, really, really off the path? Like I can't even see the path. And it tells us exactly what he'll do. He will come and get us and bring us back. We may have a broken leg when we get there, but we're going to come back.
That's right.
Right. There's something beautifully refreshing and calming about that for me because on my best days, I want to serve him. But I got some really not best days.
Sure.
And some days I don't want to. And he's gracious enough to say, hey, you idiot, I got you. Get back on the path.
That's right.
I think one of my favorite illustrations, longtime youth guy, Mike Yaconelli, I don't know if you remember that name, passed away now, but he had an illustration, I believe it was out of his book, Messy Spirituality. And it was like, we often think of the Christian life being linear, or we'll even graph it like it should be growth always up, or we'll even see it as this peaks and valleys kind of thing. And he's like, none of those things are true about walking with Christ. And he has a page where it's just a bunch of scribbles and loops and stuff like that about here's where you started and here's heaven. And it's just a blob of all kinds of mess of scribbling on the page. And he was like, this is a better picture of Christianity. And he reflects on the whole idea of like as we go off the path, God draws us back or he comes after us and that illustration. So with that in mind, knowing and understanding grace, the love of the Father, our Savior's redemption, all those kinds of things, you may mention at the end, and Solomon goes there, that God is going to bring everything under judgment. So how does that affect the way that we live when we do make poor decisions, right decisions? We hold in tension failure versus success or outcomes. How do we understand that, and how does that make us, I guess, feel or think or even live when we think about God bringing everything under judgment?
I think it should, and this was the point I attempted to make yesterday. I think it should, if we're living with a right understanding of who God is and who we are, it should bring joy to us, regardless of how we are living, because we're before the face of God, and we know that before His face there is no judgment in Christ, right? So there is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ. So anytime He looks at us, He's not like, oh, I hate that guy. Man, I can't believe, what an idiot. We may feel that about us, but that's not rightly placed if we understand what the gospel is. But I think if we don't rightly understand the gospel, or we too easily forget the gospel, it could lead us to some fear, maybe some guilt and shame that isn't ours to bear.
Sure.
I know personally I've experienced that in my own life, but what say you guys?
Yeah, I think anytime we're thinking about God watching us, right, that can bring a whole host of emotions. And unfortunately, I think a lot of times we get away from He sees us through the righteousness of Christ,
Right.
and we feel like He's looking at us through our action, our behavior, or whatever. And so He's only as pleased with me as my last good day
moment.
or bad day, right? And so I love the fact that you brought it back around, because there's always kind of two ditches in my mind. One is you read Ecclesiastes and you're like, okay, I can just do whatever.
That's right.
Because it's all just under the sun. And
We're not here for a long time.
That's
We're here
right.
for a
We're
good
not
time.
here. And I think this was sort of a course correction to, you are just under the sun doing these things, but He is still watching. Well, that can bring about this fear. Oh, He's watching. I've got to do this, and this. Yeah, but He's watching us now through the lens of our righteousness in Christ. And so, yes, be aware that He does notice how we live. He does notice, but He doesn't just notice the behavior. He notices the heart driving the behavior. And because He loves us, He still looks at us with love, and maybe has to take that goat out and say, hey, I see the behavior, but I see the heart behind it, and I'm going to need to bring you back. But it's always out of love for us and care for us, not out of, I hate you, you're awful, you're terrible.
Jesus took that punishment. I can't help but think of my kids, like when Jesus says to come to the Father is to come to Him with a childlike faith. Like, unless you do that, you'll not inherit the kingdom. And again, sometimes we understand His words maybe a little strongly because we take it literally, and I think we should literally read the Bible. But we have to understand the nuance. He isn't saying that you can't get into the kingdom. Like, the keys to the heaven are childlike faith. If you're going to enjoy the kingdom, you're going to enjoy it through the lens of a child. And I think through my 6-year-old, that whenever I tell her, like just last night, it was getting close to bedtime, and now that the sun is out later, bedtime and the sun don't help
It's
each
kind of
other.
thing.
Prior to that, I was like, hey, it's already dark. I can convince you at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Like, it's time to go ahead and shut it down. But it's like, it's 7 o'clock. She's like, what, the sun is still out.
Yeah.
I was like, Lydia, you have 10 minutes left, baby. And so they're jumping on the trampoline, and her, when I said 10 minutes to her, it didn't cause her to say, well, I only have 10 minutes left. I don't have any time to do anything. It was, I have to do the most I can with these 10 minutes. And her language was, Dad, watch me. Watch me do this trick. Watch me do this. And then I would watch her, and then I would turn and see something that Mary Joy was doing, or the dogs were over there chasing. You didn't watch me. Look back at me. Like, she desired more than anything else to be before the face of her Father. Because time was short, and we didn't have a lot of daylight left. And she wanted to spend every moment before my face. And that was joy for her. And I think there's something beautiful that Jesus invites us into that. And He says that's the kind of mentality that we should have, that we are before the face, exactly as we are, all the warts and the struggles included. And He is joyfully watching over us with the very short amount of time that we have, knowing that this time is short, but eternity is forever, and we'll get to be with Him.
That's right.
That's so good. That's so good. Well, I think we're about out of time, and but what a great discussion we had today. And I think just the reminder that as we approach life, to live it with joy, because God is with us.
He is with us,
and so
and He's enough.
And He's enough. Yeah, that's right. So
there's a quote. I know we're wrapping up. There's a quote that I heard when I was probably a teenager, that a ship at harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are for. And I think as I think about this chapter and just calculated risk and living for the kingdom, we have to get out. I mean, we have to get out of the harbor.
That's right.
Not be so worried about the safety that we so desperately cling to in our world, and go about what ships are for.
Yeah.
So,
it's a good word.
So good.
Great job, Sean Selman.
Yeah. we have a couple of things coming up. We have Wednesday nights, another Life Matters track.
Yeah, a new track. This starts this Wednesday night. Broadmoor's been really blessed to have a lot of young families join over the last 10 years. And I think those young families are getting older. And if not already, they're starting to experience aging parents.
Yeah.
And so the next 2 weeks, we're going to commit to just caring for aging elderly parents. Amy Adams will lead that. 6:15 will be in the chapel. It's going to be a great time. So if you're in that life stage or know somebody who is, we'd encourage you to come and just be encouraged.
Can you talk about Amy's expertise in the matter?
Yeah, so Amy, part of what Amy does is she is the leader of the Alignment Project, and a big part of what they do as an organization is try to connect the dots between needs and resources. And many of the needs and resources that they have done such a good job connecting is, what do you do when you are facing that season of life where you are now in many ways becoming the parent to your parents, in terms of having to maybe make decisions on their behalf or find resources to help them as they're aging. And so she has been just a wealth of information to our church and our community. It's going to be a really good 2 week just of unpacking all of those types of decisions that people face.
Right. Very good. Awesome. And the final thing is Easter's coming. And so if you
it's like our Super Bowl, man.
Yeah. So
great.
like a lot of things happening. So we encourage you to go to broadmoor.org /Easter. Everything about Easter, from Easter egg hunts to Palm Sunday to Easter Sunday, all the information is there about Easter. We do want to remind you on April 4th and 5th, so Easter weekend, we're going to be having 3 services, no life groups, but those services will take place on April 4th at 6 p.m., that's Saturday night, and then on Sunday morning at 9:30 and 11. And so we hope to see you there. Hope you come out and join us for worship. So.
Childcare 0 to 3.
Childcare for 0 through 3 during those services. No need to make reservations, just come on, all right? And so we look forward to that Sunday. So
cool.
All right.
Thank you, Sean.
Wow. Yeah.
Love you guys.
Good deal.
Love you.